Today I'm going to do another comparison between two nations. This time it'll be Germany versus Britain. This is their 90s, their early death metal scenes. I'm going to compare both nations with a couple interesting facts that I'm aware of, put some stats on the screen here, and then I'm going to move right into the music. I'm going to take my 3 favorite albums from the early death metal scenes from the respective nations and compare them. Not only the music, that's going to be the most important part, obviously, but also the aesthetic, the artwork, and just kind of the general consensus about the death metal scene overall in the nation. And at the end, I'm going to tally up the scores, and I'm going to tell you which one actually wins here. So this is the second in the series. If you missed the first one, I did Russia versus France. I'm not going to tell you who won that one. Go ahead and watch it. Let me know if you agree. If you don't, put it in the comments. I'm excited to hear what any of you have to say. So this is England versus Germany. These are kind of like two cousins that are rivals that fight every once in a while. Now, kind of Germany did take over the greater portion of the British Isles as the Angles and the Saxons and whatnot invaded the islands about 1,500 years ago or so. So their genetics are really there already, and that's why I say they're cousins. But during the World Wars, British were just, I guess, through their stoic spirit and they're fighting men also. They were able to hold off these Germanics, these Germaniacs, a couple times. So let's see. This will be another challenge. Who can win? The Germans have their technology, their might, their force. They're known as a fighting people, but the Brits are known for their ability to keep calm and carry on. I'm going to go over a couple interesting, at least interesting to me, facts about these nations. Put some information on the screen here. So Germany, it's where Protestantism started. Martin Luther, he had a dream that indulgences wouldn't be a thing. He had about 94 other dreams as well. And so about half of the country is a Lutheran, Calvinist, Protestant type, and the other half is Catholic. That's the southern portion typically, and that's from where my ancestors hail. I think I found records back to the 1600s. The eastern portion of Germany is a little anomalous in that regard, though, and that's mostly due to more or less recent geopolitical happenings. I'm sure you know what happened there, but it's very irreligious over there. In fact, they did have a metal scene, despite it being a socialist country at the time. It was a state-sanctioned and regulated metal scene, of course, but it did exist. And I covered that briefly in an earlier video. In fact, my top video, my award-winning German black metal video, it actually has more views than all my other videos put together. I don't know why. You know what? Here, watch a second minute. Maybe you can let me know why this one does so much better than the others. It's good, don't get me wrong. He did reunify, but prior to that, there was a metal scene regulated by the government on the eastern side of the country, the so-called German Democratic Republic. Formel 1 was probably the first popular metal band. There was also Macbeth, but I think the government forced their disbandment. You weren't really allowed a stage if you wouldn't integrate the socialist aesthetics. I can't really recall any other metal bands from the nation. There was a large subculture of metalheads, just as there were for punk, skinheads, goths. They were referred to as heavies, and they fed on the bands they heard from the West. Alright, so watch that after you're done watching this one. Couple other facts about Germany and religion. They're about 7% Muslim, and that's despite massive immigration. So if you wanted to just pit England and Germany against each other based on their ability to virtue signal for immigration, Germany wins, but in the 90s, Britain would have won, and that's why they're about 7% Muslim also. They have about as equal amount of Catholics in their country as they do Muslims, and that's due to, well, Anglicanism was invented there. That's a kind of difficult word for me to wrap my mouth around, but I'm sure if you know of its existence, you know why it exists. It's known as Episcopalianism here in the U.S., and that's actually due to the American Revolution. But none of this stuff is probably relevant or really that interesting to you. Both nations have fewer than 1% Jewish population also, which I find interesting. Now, the reason you're here, obviously, is for the death metal. Now, Britain, I would say, is well known for their death metal scene. They're kind of responsible, I would say, for the formation or the starting of a couple different subgenres of death metal. We, of course, had the Peaceful Three, which really didn't stay death metal for that long, but their early stuff is fantastic. And on the other side, you had, going the other direction, is some of the earache bands that while they started as death grind or grindcore, they kind of changed into death metal. For example, these three, and the one I'm going to give you for my top release from Britain is Carcass here. This is the fantastic in-between album between the two genres that they really mastered, that being the gore grind and the melodic death metal. I really like this album as an example to show people because it's a perfect combination of those two styles of music. Now, I am probably not going to win any fans when I say this, but I do not like the album cover. And in fact, the album cover stopped me from purchasing it as a blind purchase back in the day when you couldn't find samples and stuff like that. And you just knew what you saw when you looked at when you had to judge an album by its cover. So sorry to say, I'm not a fan of it whatsoever, but sometimes you got to look past that. I'm sure you know what they sound like, but here's a sample. Right, I give that an A+ for sure. Now the next band I want to suggest is a lot less well known, Lord of Putrefaction. This is from very dirty doom death metal. They morphed into Electric Wizard, who isn't death metal by any means, but has some S-tier quality releases themselves that check out at some point. Doom just really is a big thing in Britain for whatever reason. It's just really a wonder that DSBM isn't more of a thing there. I don't know why. This is that death doom that I love, not the gothic influenced so much. This is more that slimy, grimy type death doom, like maybe Infestor mixed with Baba Yaga. Do you know them? If you don't, check them out. Here, I mentioned them in this video here. I absolutely love the guitar tone in this. It's just so fucking heavy. It really is. Here, check it out. Alright, that gets a solid A+ as well. Now my final example I'm going to give you is by a band called Corpse. Now if we're just going by the cover here, this fails in many regards. But we're talking about the music. Now of course, the album cover will go into the final calculation to determine which country has a better death metal scene here. But just talking about the music, this needs to be mentioned, and that's why it's my example number 3 here. This is a death and roll type death metal. In fact, as far as I'm aware, it might be the first example outside of Sweden which was doing this style. If you can think of anything earlier, please let me know in the comments. Check them out. Now, a couple other bands you might have wondered why I didn't notice, but they're worth checking out for sure. More well-known stuff like Benediction. Cancer. Also check out Decomposed if you really do like that kind of that peaceful sound. There was maybe lesser known stuff that's still worthwhile. Desecrator. I don't know. That's enough for calculation purposes, right? Wouldn't you say? So while the British boasted earache, peaceful, music for nations, Germany had Nuclear Blast and Century Media, Steamhammer, Massacre Records. Are any of those good anymore? Honestly, I remember being so disappointed at the end of the 90s with Century Media and Relapse and a few other album companies that, I don't know, who is still good? I mean, Germany has like Darker Than Black and Iron Bonehead, Iron Pegasus, but none of those really existed when I was a kid. I know them since I've been an adult. I mean, worldwide, Osmos, I think, has stayed true. Maybe Seasons of Mist. Is it just a French thing to stay true? I don't know. What about in the U.S.? Does Morbid still exist? I mean, of course, like current day stuff, like Hell's Headbangers and Nuclear War Now. There's the Anja Offensive. That's a weird name, I know, but check out their lineup. It's some good stuff. Well, anyway, way off topic here. Let's see. German death metal bands. The more popular ones I would say are like Atrocity, Dark Millennium, maybe Flesh Crawl. They all had their best stuff in 92. Morgoth, another big one. Their best one was from 93. Well, I'm not going to use that as an example. I want to note it did have like some electronic and industrial, maybe even some post-metal elements in it. So it was unique at the time, but don't let that description scare you away. It's pretty darn good. But the first example I'm going to use is Mangled Torsos. This is some really catchy death metal with very guttural, deep vocals that usually aren't found outside of like some gore grind or death grind at least. If you don't know them, definitely give this a listen. Check it out. right, what do you think of that? That's a solid A. Now the next band I'm going to give is 𝔼𝔸𝕝𝒄. Maybe you know them, maybe you don't. They really changed their style. By the end of the 90s, I mean, they were... They were different, let's just say. But their first album here, it's self-titled, and I've heard it go by like Ignis Crescio or something like that. This is some very solid death doom, maybe a bit of gothic influence, but nothing overpowering. This is absolutely one of the best that you could find from Germany. Check this out.
That keeps you warm, holds you tight, and burns bright. It's a fire that burns in me. Oh yeah. Still burning fire. It's my steel, yeah, burning fire. It's the fire that keeps you warm, holds you tight, and burns you right. It's the fire that still burns in
me. Alright, that's another A. And finally, the number one album from Germany, playing death metal at this time, that I want to provide you as an example is 𝔼𝔸𝕝𝒄 from '91. The guitar tone on this is absolutely fantastic, and the soloing, fuck yeah. Now, interestingly, this was mixed by Andy Classen, who you might know from like 𝔼𝔸𝕝𝒄, Rotting Christ. Who else did he do? Christian. But I think this might have been his first production. I'm uncertain about that, but I would describe this as the Swedish sound mixed with some Teutonic thrash and some early autopsy. If that don't pique your curiosity, maybe you shouldn't be watching my channel. But check it out. Let me know what you think. All right, what'd you think about that? I think that's absolutely one of those hidden nuggets, because I don't hear them talked about at all in any regard. A couple others you might want to know: Incubator, Jumpin' Jesus. Both of them had their best stuff in '91. Infernal Curse had a great album in '94. That was a fun release. You know what? Check those out as well. And all that's going to go into the entire formula to be able to decide the proper calculation for who is superior in their death metal output at the get-go here, at the beginning, when the death metal actually mattered. So, I have the results right here. I have not looked at them yet, but I got these certified because there was a little consternation from the score last time. People didn't think I did it correctly, so I made sure I hired some actuaries, some accountants from Arthur Anderson. Out of the trueness score, we're going to check here. Let's see. Oh, sure enough, I was right. But look, the score's on the screen right here. It wasn't as close as I imagined it would be. But, you know, those are the professionals. Those people know what they're doing with numbers and stuff like that. So, I guess that's what we get. The vicious Huns have been defeated. The island fortress theory has once been confirmed.
Feel a shining knife.
There's no sunshine, only darkness. There's no escape. The only hope is the sweet relief of death.